You know. You know how this goes.
I say short. So, everybody who wants to come hang out with me and Omen Al, and whoever else pops up, I want to say, I hope you're all having a good evening. Yes, you just saw us earlier today on the review where we're talking about really one of my favorite films, Timeline. I know it has some flaws in it, but most movies do. I think I'm enjoying the book, and it's weird for me to say this because I think I enjoy the book 10 times more than I enjoy the movie, and the movie is one of my. If I'm dying next month of cancer, it's on. Okay, I'm watching this movie. It's one of the five I watched before I go.
Well, you were what, 16 when it came out? Something like that?
2003? No, I just graduated high school.
Okay.
I
Well,
mean, like I said in the show, quantum physics has always grabbed my interest. I know at like 100%, I probably know 5% of it. I mean, I get it. I just don't. I don't,
you don't understand it, but you understand the concepts, I guess.
Well, I listened to Hawkins. I've listened to other professors over the years talking about it. I get it. I understand. I mean, I understand when I hear. It's like when they are trying to do a experiment on a proton, and it misbehaves. They do the test 5 times. It does what it's supposed to do once, but the next 4 times it's giving the scientists misbehaving. I mean, I get it. I get where they're going, but I just it's beyond me. I mean, like I said, I'm not an idiot by any stretch of the imagination, and I think our future very much will be wrapped in quantum physics. I mean, if you want the Star Trek world to come be, I think quantum physics is the key. I don't think time traveling will ever be a thing. Yeah. I don't think that's ever going to happen, but bouncing into a different multiverse, mini Earth one, that's kind of cool. I mean, that trope has been kind of beaten to death over the last 20 years.
Yeah, I mean, well, what was the famous TV show, which was Sliders?
Those sliders, yeah.
Which it didn't quite get me, but but I know that a lot of people liked it, and I have nothing bad to say against it. I saw a couple of episodes, like, oh, okay, as they went from one universe to another, trying to find their way back home.
I mean, yeah. I mean, hell, there was Quantum Leap back in the 80s and 90s where the concept was he can only leap into timelines that he had to be born in or out. He had 100-year window.
Yes.
But they never went like something that happened into the future because the show was there's 100-year window, but they only went from point A to point maybe 35.
Yes, yeah. I mean, I watched a little bit of Quantum Leap. It wasn't quite my thing, but I'm not knocking it. What I've learned from Quantum, and I could be completely off. And of course, I know. What is it? Alan? I can't remember his name. Jeez, the one that Shadow loves to go on Saturdays.
Yeah, Nathan Allen.
Nathan Allen. Yeah, I was like, why can't I remember his first name? But now I know that he talks about a lot of times when I hear quantum it's just it's probability that when it's scaled up, it works for Newtonian physics so much.
Yeah.
So you really scale it way down. And, it's like saying, okay, you have 2/3 of a chance. And anyone that's actually taking probability is if you do it an infinite number of times, then it will literally come up that it's always like this. But if you bring it further down, then it's, when you get to like an individual atom, then it does all sorts of weird things just because.
Oh yeah.
And that's why
it's a very interesting subject. Like I love history. History is one of my God, I could talk history forever. And where once again, no shade being thrown. Shadow has no interest in history, and that's his prerogative. I think it's dangerous, but everything we do is predetermined by what, a teenager will act a certain way. How do we know? Because teenagers have always acted a certain way.
I look at this way, which is, again, comes down to probability, and then to say that things have an influence. To say that you aren't influenced by your society, I think would be wrong, and I think it's better to understand it. And I think it's very important to understand, because I love history too. Like when you read the Gulag Archipelago, and I noticed this when I went to Russia, 30 years ago, that you could tell that there was an influence of that kind of society on people, which gives them a different outlook than other cultures. And I think that's one of the problems that we have with our political leaders, is that they assume everyone is like people around them. And when you start looking at history, you go, okay, what shaped some of these ideas that went around? And to be fair, is I think human beings are human beings, but you can't say that it doesn't have a major influence on your outlook, especially when you were young. I'm not saying that you can't break free from it, but it does give you a direction that you're probably going to head, or that you're going to act. And some people you don't know how they're going to act at any time, but other people you can say, this is the way they've acted the previous 10 times. The probability that they're going to act this way the 11th is pretty high.
The father's this way, the son's like that way, the grandchild's going to be that way, because it's just a family personality trait.
It is, but I mean, even brothers and sisters, you'll notice 2 or 3 brothers can be very similar, but they'll be slightly different,
Right, and that is very true. I have like 2 brothers that we are fundamentally nothing alike.
Yeah.
And it's not that I don't love them, I just think the other 2 are wrong on everything. And they think I'm wrong, which is fine.
But that's why I think it's important to understand someone. You have to look at a lot, and even Shadow admits this, you have to understand someone's, as much as I hate, because it's used sometimes the wrong way, as lived experiences. Well, lived experiences will taint our view towards one way or another. But that doesn't mean that you can't discuss things with people. And sometimes, and I tried getting this over with my son, is I want to discuss things so I understand how people are thinking or why they think something. There's nothing I hate more than someone saying, "Well, do you think this because of X?" I'm like, how do you know? Well, you're because you're this. Well, you didn't even ask my opinion, and that's one thing. It's probably why I'm single.
You live in a Democratic state, therefore you must be a Democrat.
That's stupid. Well, I mean, it's not even that. Is if you ask someone, even if regardless of political persuasion, and this is
I'm just using because everybody knows I'm in Illinois.
But I mean, if you say you're a Democrat, it's one thing to ask the person on the ground; it's another to ask a politician. And a lot of times, if you really listen to politicians, because X is paying me a certain amount of money, whereas when you listen to someone on the ground, it's because, well, this is the reason I believe this, because this happened to my sister or my brother. It's a very, but you have to like dig down and talk to people, which means that you have to treat them as a human being. Hey, Hunger.
Hey, God forbid treating somebody like a human being. How dare you?
That's why I hate, anyone trying to say X or Y. It's just, well, talk to that person. Why'd you ask for it? And I try to tell my son is try to find the top 5 issues for someone, and you'll find out generally where they're going to go. But it doesn't mean that they can't differ, X and Y. If there are 20 issues, they'll name their top 5, and you'll find out which ones are important to them, and they may disagree with their political persuasion on the other 15, but those 5 are the ones that matter the most. And I think but again, that takes time, and most people don't want to talk to someone. They just want to put them in a little box. And I went, yeah, okay, but you're not, well, then you're treating a person as an object. You're not treating them as a human being. And that's the problem that I have with anything.
I get that. Hey, how you doing?
Ah, okay.
I'm not bitching because I enjoy doing the Sunday review with you guys, but I've noticed I get more people showing up for these than anything else.
But to be fair, let's be honest about it. A lot of people watching football this time of the year.
And that's fine and whatnot. I think, I don't know. I think I have a great panel. And I have no complaints about our Sunday review. I think the movies that we pick are fun. Uh, God, I love to get back to Dresden Files. I mean, I think that's just going to be a hard sell for a while, and that's fine. Oh,
I've been going through Elric, which everyone's like, "Oh, you need to read this." So for the last 30 years, people have been telling me to read that, and I went,
I'm. I normally have an order on how I read things, but after reading Timeline, I am actually kind of thinking about just jumping on the bandwagon and reading his next 4 books or Congo, uh, whatever. I just because I like his style writing. I like because he was using hard science, well, fringe science, I should say, because quantum, and is quantum physics is that a hard science or is it a theoretical fringe science? That's always been my question.
to me, it's both. I think part of the problem is that you had a deterministic science under Newton,
Right.
and you can see that in Star Trek, where they think they can solve everything by finding out the problems, and I may have gotten this wrong, but I could have sworn that Einstein, for the longest time, didn't like it because he said um, God does not play with dice. But when you look at quantum, it is. And to be fair on this, and I could be wrong because I really haven't studied it, but between the famous scientists, of which Einstein is the most well known, um, honestly, I think Niels Bohr was far smarter for a lot of stuff,
Yeah.
and he dealt with the quantum aspect of it. Um, but that's my feeling on it. Now, I could be completely wrong on it. And it works really well for cell phones and things like that. They've really got into a lot of that aspect. But I've really enjoyed, from my daily perspective, as we go by Newtonian physics, just because we're looking at big structures that, over an average, are better represented by that. And even then, I still have done probabilistic.
Right. No, and I get that. I don't know. It's I just
I think it's one of those, as much as people talk about it, is even the people who are deep down know that there's way too much. Like, how do I want to put this? They sort of understand it, but it's still probabilistic. So they can say, okay, this is what it probably will do, but it doesn't mean that's absolutely what it will do. Whereas if you look at
right.
physics, you can go, oh, if you do the X, this will equal Y. Now, don't get me wrong, Newtonian physics has gotten us to the moon and has gotten us far, far beyond that. But um, because I bought a book somewhere in there, I think it actually is a quantum book, and it's got triple integrals. Anyone that's done integrals knows those can be a huge pain in the butt. Um, Actually, I might be able to pull it out. I tried reading it, and I really didn't. I really wanted more of a conceptual one than just one that
Right.
like a textbook. Um, but that's what you get when you go down to. I guess this was pre-Amazon that I was picking a lot of this. Actually, it wasn't pre-Amazon, but it was in the era right there. Let's see if I can find it here. Anyway, yeah, there we go.
Gotcha.
So it's there, but I'm not so sure that it's. But if I open it up,
Accurate anymore? Depends on how old the book is. Might mean if it's still accurate.
Well, I don't. I think a lot of the stuff is still. Well, it's like pulling up a calculus book. They can keep showing more and more calculus, but calculus really hasn't changed in a long time.
Right.
Whereas I think,
Did you see the movie Incredibles 2?
yeah,
The
the first.
scene, there's a reason why I bring that. The scene where the dad is trying to help the kid with math, and he's like, math is math, but the way that they're teaching it is not the math that he grew up on.
But I've seen that before. But sometimes
With
I'm
my
not.
daughter when my daughter was in public school, she brought home a math assignment, and they were saying how it needs to be done. I'm like, no, this is the simple answer. And I was like, no, math has changed. I'm like, math hasn't changed. Math is math. 2 + 2 is 4. It will always be 4.
I saw some of that stuff with my son when they were doing the Common Core stuff, and all
Yeah.
it was confuse the kid more than, to me, it's one thing to know everything exact, and then to go. What they were trying to do is they were trying to use the advanced concepts first before they brought down the concrete stuff. And I'm like,
Right.
teach them the concrete, and then as they get older, it's like, well, what's the approximate?
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
but to show you, since I know that's well, I know you're dyslexic for that, but anyone that can see that stuff, it's the partial differential equations, and partial differentiation of what is that? R over Y equals sine V over sine.
Oh, that's where you lose me. I got off the math bus right when they started introducing fucking letters in my math. I'm like, no, the two things are separated.
I know, but this is I mean I think it's got a lot of the concepts in here that they still use. I think my friend actually used this book when she was taking stuff for her master's,
Right.
which was only like 5 or 6 years ago. So that this is the theory, but that doesn't mean the practical stuff in there. But yeah, you're doing Laplace equations and everything else. And I'm going, okay, look, that's just way too much math for me to find fun. Well, not that I was a good programmer. I was an okay programmer.
No, I don't.
But
Yeah.
when something goes wrong, I don't like chasing stuff for 12 hours because I missed a semicolon somewhere.
No.
Yeah, that was not.
I don't. I mean, it's not that I don't understand it. I don't program that. Me and computers have never really been friends to begin with. I mean, I understand them. Once again, it's the understanding thing. I know that it is a tool that you could use. And certain people are really good with computers, and certain people are not. I think I'm damaged goods because I saw Terminator 2 way too early in life. So computers I don't trust computers. I just
as I get older, it's not the computers I don't trust; it's the people behind them programming them.
Oh yeah, yeah. Me and a mutual friend of mine. He's like, well, if we make androids, they will have to do what. I'm like, only, because of these rules. I'm like, only if the person who made the robot put in those rules. If you get somebody who makes an android and says, fuck the world, then off to the races we go.
Well, that's the one thing I liked about Isaac Asimov. With his
Right, yeah, it's his rules. They're always being quoted whenever that stuff gets brought up.
Well, and I like that, but no one's implementing it. And then the problem is because the money is in, sadly, it's the money is in weapons and killing human beings. And in some ways, and this is where I get into the confessions of an economic hitman, they would rather it be that way. I mean, at the end of the day, just like, when we started this conversation of treating human beings as human beings, stop looking at them as commodities and start treating them as individuals. And not everyone's going to agree, and it doesn't mean everyone's going to benefit, but you start treating someone like a human being, and then you say, okay, we're going to go through this. At least factor them in there. But I think that's part of the problem as bureaucracies get bigger and bigger. We stop looking at people as human beings, and we start looking at them purely as numbers. And I think that's
It's dangerous.
well, it is. It's a loss of humanity. Well, that's what they did with as much as people talk about communism, that's what they did. Oh, it's for the greater good. Well, be really careful on whenever people start saying for the greater good.
Great good. I nuked. Me and the other guy nuked that camp full of frost giants, which was an army, and our justification was for the greater good.
You know what though? Is there certain times you go, okay, at the end of the day, and this is why people are, well, I don't like bioessentialism. Then are you a fucking idiot? I mean, I hate saying that for the curse, but that's absolutely true. Guess what?
Yeah.
What's your option? If you are not a bioessentialist, then guess what? You might as well lay down and let the other one just roll over you and kill you. Now, if I hate telling you this, and this is some of the things I don't like about some of it, a human being's life matters more than a damn dog's. And too many people are like, oh, but I love dogs and hate people. Well, then you know what? That represents a moral failing on your standard because you're putting, unless it's something that's protecting you and your family, okay, that's one thing. But when you're just looking at overall, I'm sorry, it's a dog. Okay, I would rather help another human.
Yeah, it's
I don't
not
have
that
to
I
like
don't.
human beings, but I still believe that their value of their life is higher than a dog or a cat. So
See, Me being the son of a bitch that I am, I was like, well, it depends on the person. And I'm like, no, that's not the answer. But it in the back of my head, but it, okay, you have a pedophile and a dog. Whose life are you going to save? The
Well,
evicted pedophile or the dogs?
I,
I'm going to
well,
say the
well,
dog.
well, and I hate saying this is if a dog's attacking a child and a pedophile is attacking the child, your life is worth approximately less than the child's at the end of the day, and that's what I'm gonna, that's what I'm trying to say for that one.
There. I mean, I know I sound horrible for saying it that way, but it's like between the two, I know who I'm going to save.
Well, there's one's redeemable. Uh, that's that's what some of it comes down to. But at the end of the day, and this is where I also get into, like, I have nothing technically against the death penalty. The problem that I have is prosecutors that are hiding information, and people are like, oh no, they don't. Yes, they do.
Oh yeah, you
And,
need.
uh,
Yeah, I don't have a problem with it either, but at the same time, there's been thousands of people put to death on for crimes that they didn't commit because of biasm, racism, lazyism, or whatever. And if you have 100% DNA proof that this son of a buck did this, and it is so heinous that the only action is death penalty, I don't have a problem with that. I'm not saying I
well,
want to be the guy pulling the switch. Well,
but I mean, again, that's one of those things that the problem that I have is I'm getting older, is I'm realizing that they don't work in the benefit of presumed innocent until proven guilty. And, we have an adversarial system, and all too often there's an incentive to get as many convictions regardless of whether it's right or wrong. And
oh yeah,
I think that's the
God,
problem with
it,
the legal aspect is no, if you're going to if you want it, then you should have it. But I would get awfully mad when I start finding out these things where not the guy got the death penalty, but the guy got over into this where, they're like, oh, well, he murdered such and such person. And they said, yeah, except the problem is that where he was located at lunchtime was 50 minutes to drive there and 50 minutes back. And his boss said so there was really bad circumstantial evidence. Um, it's very different when we have video, we see it. And the same reason I don't like it whenever they use confessions. Well, we're going to coerce a confession. Well, if that lets you get more evidence against the person, that's one thing. But I don't trust a confession if you grill a guy for 24 hours and you start tricking him, and then at the point that he can't tell what time it is, and then he's just like, well, I just want to get something to eat. He's blurry eyed, and he signs doesn't know what.
yeah,
That's
it's
yeah.
that same. I understand the argument. I was playing some video game, and the concept is you could torture somebody for information. I'm like, well, that doesn't work. My buddy's like, why does that not work? Because you torture somebody long enough, they're going to admit to be Jesus if you do it long enough. It's not. They will. They will tell you whatever you want to hear just to make the pain stop. And humans as a whole make horrible witnesses. It's been proven. Well, that guy was tall, short, fat, skinny, with long blonde black hair with hazel blue eyes. Wait, what? You heard
I,
me. Dot dot dot. You know.
uh, Unless you really know someone, and this sounds weird, even though we do it the opposite nowadays. There used to be a time that the reason that you had a trial by jury is that generally the assumption was these people would understand. And when they say the jury of your peers, the idea was that, um, well, this is the problem I have with it is you don't get everyone that doesn't relate to your what goes on in your life. And the other part I think is when people talk about justice, is are you trying to reform someone to bring them out? Or are you trying to punish them? Now, I'm not saying that punishment doesn't work as a deterrent, but I think that sometimes, and I was listening to one guy when he was talking about, you get these snitches that come in, the guy buys drugs, and then what they say is, well, because you sold this amount of drugs in a week, which isn't enough to give you a life sentence, just enough to give you a misdemeanor. But we're going to say that you sold that amount for 52 weeks, and as such, we're going to jump that up to a felony unless you sign off. And I went, hold it. You should only be able to get them on what you can prove, not what you suppose that they've done.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
that,
no, I trust me, I completely agree. When pot became legit in Illinois, the first thing that ran out of my mouth, well, every poor bastard out in jail right now who's in jail for selling pot needs to be released. If they had kids, they need to be returned to them, and they need to be able to live the rest of their life. This is with pot. This is not with heroin, meth, anything else. I'm just talking just pot.
well, even for well, and I'm going. And I used to be, and I'm still somewhat in there. Is unless you're doing something else to, stealing and other stuff, which to me should count as those crimes. A lot of these crimes are stuff that you're doing against yourself. Well, I don't know how to look at it, and I'm not trying to say
So if you're not selling meth, but you're taking meth, you're basically doing it to yourself argument.
you are, and I understand sometimes but part of me gets into that we're missing this next part of redemption. Is like, oh, okay, well, we're going to put them in jail. All right, what are you doing to get them clean? What are you doing to have them reform their life?
Well, we don't want people to inform their life. We want people in prison. So these corporations now that own prisons, and I'm not trying to get too far into the conspiracy theories. This is just from what I've read and from my understanding, is major corporations are buying prisons across America.
No, oh, here's what bothers me. I mean, I'm not disagreeing with it, but I'm going to bring it over. When I saw the, what was it? The prison guard union or something saying, no, you can't reduce the penalties for drugs because then we'll lose our jobs. And all I could think is that's an immoral stance, regardless of, I understand.
You can't do this because I'll lose my. People are not going to stop committing crimes.
No.
Your job is supposed to be. That's called security.
Well, we're talking about crimes that really hurt yourself more than others. That's what I guess. But that's what I'm referring to. Is I said, no, you can't do X because then we'll lose our jobs. I said, at no point in a moral standpoint should you say, well, we have to throw people in jail and take them away from their families and everything else instead of trying to have a support system, trying to reform them because I need to keep my job. I would rather put people so they do not have one. We're going to destroy someone's life so I can keep my job. And I said, well, there's plenty of crime out there. To me, I'm going, okay, if you're looking at stealing, and speaking of which, and I'm not trying to go through, it didn't. It just
you could blame Nixon for that one.
No, that was a lot of stuff. No, you can go all the way back to Reefer Madness.
That was what, 50s?
30s. 30s is when they started going back for that. And they went over and here's the thing that I look at. And then this is why I say I would have rather, when people talk about decriminalization, I wouldn't mind it as much if it's legalized. And as much as I don't like certain regulations, to me, what it really comes down to is, hey, there's something on this bottle that says it's been tested and it's safe, and it has to have been done that way. So if I'm buying marijuana, I know I'm getting marijuana. And now you start listening to all this stuff laced with fentanyl. And what is fentanyl? Killing like 100,000 people a year? I'm like,
yeah.
I would like you to know that if you're going to go that route of doing drugs, then I would like them to know that what they're getting is what is marked, not that they're getting additional additives that are going to kill them, which is what the fentanyl did. And actually, if you listen to what was this, Timothy O'Leary, the guy who was big into LSD.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
He wanted it regulated to make sure that people would get safe LSD rather than a complete ban. I know that sounds weird, but the point was, and I've talked.
I'm just thinking somebody with my background on an acid trip is not safe for anybody.
Well, yes, but the difference is that I don't want you suddenly taking fentanyl with your LSD. So now you're going to die.
Yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying. I just like crap.
Well, but yeah. And he wanted it regulated, and part of it was that he wanted to make sure that it was used in a, with medical environment and stuff. And then That's the thing that, like,
I
so
mean, it's a
Simon,
fair argument.
yeah,
I mean, what did Climbing Mountain have to say? Uh, very black jazz musicians were, yeah, yeah, racism. That, yeah, yep. I
there's
can,
a lot of factors, and it's, everyone talks about racism, but a lot of times there's also a classism. It's like, oh, this is legal because it's upper class, but as soon as the lower classes have this, we got to look. You have to go through it. Like, well, wait a minute, why is this one worse than this one? It's a lot of times it's because, oh, those are lower class. It's just like as much as people talk about Jim Crow laws, they use that against poor whites as well. But that's
oh,
not
God, yeah.
that to say. And I'm glad, without the civil rights movement, guess what? It affected the poor as majority. And I know Thomas Sowell goes through a lot of this stuff, but I think that's part of why I don't like certain things is, oh, well, I don't like this because, or we're going to do it to make it worse. As much as it's just like them pushing the electric car. Oh, buy a $60,000 Tesla. Well, that's nice, except why don't you tell the poor kid who's trying to work at the very beginning, who needs a dumpy car that it's probably like $4,000 or $2,000. You know what? He needs that to go from point A to point B, and he's never going to get the job skills if you take it away his ability to actually go to work.
Yeah, I get that, and I completely agree. Um, fucking, who was it? I was making fun of I wasn't making fun of it. I was it irritated the hell out of me, honestly. Who was it? The Mickey D's that are going completely uh automatic, or not automatic, but
Automated, yeah. It's, well, like you said, it's an automated thing. Well, a perfect example of slightly automated is, and this is the way I feel about it. Why do you have a check engine light? We have computer screens. Why doesn't it come over and tell you blah 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 and tell you exactly what that is? I mean,
I don't have a computer screen in my car, but I get what you're saying.
well. Even when you look at the bottom, sometimes it will say,
Yeah,
oil or something. Like you couldn't put a code out there where you could look it up in your book. Why is that?
right.
Um,
I going back to the whole jury thing, you said that, it made me think of that the old movie. I mean, they redid it with Pauly Shore years ago, called 12 Angry Men.
oh yeah.
And you had one juror basically go around saying, no, that doesn't sound right. Let's rethink about it. And it came down to that one guy said, oh, of course he did. He's Puerto Rican. Of course, dot, dot, dot. And I wish that every jury, I don't know if it's actually true or not, but I wish every jury had at least one person on it who said, no, let's rethink this.
Well, I don't know if you've okay. So I like listening to Robert Barnes, and he's a defense attorney.
Robert Burns, I have to look into him.
Robert Barnes, Viva Fry. You don't have to agree with everything, but he's represented a lot of different people. Wesley Snipes and several other things. He talks about certain things.
Tax fraud.
Well. He actually sued the IRS for the Obamacare stuff
Oh,
because
really?
what they were doing is the IRS was going into your personal records, and they were making
Oh,
sure
God.
that could be given to certain people so they could start blackmailing you on, like, oh, did you see a therapist? Did you do, all the stuff that's supposed to be protected? And he said, you're not supposed to be looking at that. That's between them and the doctor, not between
Right. That's
that.
not OSHA. That's HIPAA.
Well, supposedly, but the IRS was saying, well, it gives us the right to look into your stuff to see what's, so also they could find out if, your wife was going crazy, things that they can use against you, from your medical records. Now, for someone like myself, I'm like, yeah, okay, fine. You're not going to find too much. But, if you have some embarrassing stuff or, things like that, then yeah, that you don't want that out. And I think that's, and they were going, and then we're talking about federal judges that they could use this to blackmail them. So now you're saying,
Yeesh.
yeah, that was the problem. That anyway, he fought against that, but he was talking about the most important money to spend is not on the lawyer. Spend the money on jury selection. And he said most jurors are kind of the get along, go along kind of thing. And so when you look at it is, well, you know what? We all want to go home. I'm tired of being here. I'll switch my vote. Instead of holding out like you should, is And I think that's part of it. Is you should really sit down.
Did you ever see what was that movie? It was a zombie movie with Brad Pitt, World War Z,
Yeah.
where they were talking about the India. They had a council, and there was always one.
It was
What?
Israel. It was Israel, and they always had one person that was going to give the counter argument to everybody else. It was
I
like,
want that position. That's a job I want. Let me be devil's advocate for a career. I'd fucking adore it.
Well,
Because
look,
I mean, on the show, one of the shows I'm on, Table Breakers, we were talking about the OGL, and there was a big part of me, and I'm glad that I didn't do it, but there was a big part of me that wanted to play devil's advocate, because any healthy conversation needs to have at least one person who's willing to be that asshat.
well, and okay, so there's that aspect, and then I'm going to bring up one other aspect, which is because I do enjoy debate and arguing back and forth. Is if you don't know your opponent's argument, they're going to tear you apart if you ever go in a public debate. And
Oh yeah.
perfect example, speaking of Michael Crichton, is he was on a panel talking about global warming.
Oh, was he? I did not know that.
Yeah. Well, he wrote something called what is the State of Fear or something. Um, anyway, he was on a panel with several different scientists, and he was on one side that was, look, it's not like you're explaining it, and then there was the other side which had Michael Mann and stuff. Well, the problem is that they lived in their complete bubble, and because they lived in a complete bubble, they did not know how to do their counter arguments, and because they didn't know how to do their counter arguments, they just got murdered up to the
By
point. But that the people's opinions that were sitting in the audience went from like 33% agreeing with Michael Crichton to like 66% agreeing with him. I mean, it was a huge swing, and regardless of what goes on, is you should know your opponent's arguments so you can counter them. And if you're not doing that, it doesn't
right. Then you come to an argument disarmed.
exactly. Well, yeah, it's like, oh, I came over here. Well, how do I want to put this? It's not even like you're untrained. I can give you a sword, but there's a big difference between the guy that's been practicing for 5 years versus you that's been practicing against your friends and you know all your friends' maneuvers. And you're like, what did this guy do? I never saw that before. Yeah, because you all agreed that you a perfect example that I can think of is when I was taking a keto, where everyone agrees to do their okay, you're gonna do this maneuver, I'm gonna do this. Boy, if you get someone to resist, it's a pain in the butt to do that. And I'm sure that it's just like MMA.
Oh yeah.
But what
No,
I found,
I mean I haven't done that style of martial arts before. I've thought about it a handful of times, but never did it. I've thought the ones I have done, like boxing, there was no agreement. The only agreement was I'm going to put you on the ground. No, I'm going to put you on the ground.
yeah, but imagine a boxer suddenly coming in against someone that's MMA and suddenly finding out that they don't know all the rules.
Oh, I've seen it. George Foley versus the Irish guy, McGregor.
Yeah.
Weather was it Motherway? Weather? Anyways, but yeah, and I'm like watching this. I'm like, I know what's going to happen, and my buddy's like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "Okay, weather Mayweather is a boxer. He knows how to put gas in his tank. If you watch the other guy who does MMA, his fights are fast. They're fast, they're dirty, and they're done. So if I'm fighting somebody who I know is going to go through their gas tank fast, and I got miles, I'm going to let them run empty. And I said this before the match, and it went exactly the way I said. But I agree with what you're saying. It's just you got to know what you're getting into. And I'm not saying McGregor couldn't beat my ass because he could. I'm not questioning that factor. I'm just saying he walked into a match that he was not ready for.
Well, he was learning a whole new different style where they limited him. Yeah. Well, who they're dealing with, yeah. Well, there's a difference though. It's up to you for your medical records. It's not, and for you to release them. It is not for the government to try using it and then trying to blackmail whatever's in your medical records against you. And that's the problem that I have with a lot of it is, hey, that's, the government should be trying to, and this is my view for a lot of stuff, is it should be doing your basic functions of government, and it should not be trying to do everything to get you. It has way too much power, trying to control your life, rather than trying to say, hey, look, we all agree that murder's bad. We're going to have a police force with the detectives, and we're going to do this. The sad fact of it is, and this is what kind of bothers me is, and I didn't realize this, the average, if you're going to go to court, it's $750 an hour. And,
Oh yeah, and God help you if you lose your freaking case, because now you're responsible for the bill. If you do win your case, there's an off chance that you can sue the person who took you to court for the court fees.
well, unless it's the government.
Yeah.
There's a reason a lot of people will plead guilty just to avoid that, because they don't want to go bankrupt. It's like, oh, you know what? It's easier for me to plead guilty to go to jail for a year than it is for me to fight this out.
I don't know how I feel about that. Giving up a year of freedom versus going bankrupt. Well, the financial situation I'm in right now, you can't as much as you want you can't make a rock bleed. So I don't know. It's a weird catch, but I get what you're saying.
Well, but you can't get, it's hard to get good counsel. I mean, a perfect example, whether people like him or not, because again, Robert Barnes was going to represent him for a while. They raised $2 million for Kyle Rittenhouse. I mean, they had a dream team for the whole thing. And why?
Yeah, that guy.
Well,
yeah.
Do you know why they picked on him? Because he came from a lower middle class family that they think that they could steamroll, and they found out the hard way they couldn't, because they raised enough money. Go look at the city mayor. I mean, they're all related to each other. I mean, I don't know if you watched the trial. I watched bits and pieces.
I did. I had my own issues with what he did, but none of them were.
Well, see, the problem is people going through it, and I'm going, whether you like it or not, you're talking about the pedophile is, a pedophile was chasing a minor shoots and kills pedophile. That was the first one.
That's where you stick a fork right into my part of my earlier argument. I get that. And that wasn't the problem I had.
No. Well, people are saying, well, you shouldn't have been out there with the gun. Okay. Well, that's a completely separate thing, but it was perfectly legal. And like, okay, you're arguing different things. But at the end of the day, he wouldn't have had to be out there if the mayor had brought in the National Guard.
Both.
Okay. But he wouldn't have had to been out there if they had allowed the National Guard to come in to prevent the riots. I mean, plain fact.
And I understand, and yeah. I semi-agree with what you're saying, but he was a minor.
I understand that.
He should not have been out there, period. He should have been at home. He should be doing whatever he needs to do for the next day of school or whatever. He had no business as a minor. If he was if he was 18 and older, I wouldn't say word one. But as being a parent,
don't get me wrong. There's a lot of things I think, that was a bad decision. And whether people like it or not, let's be honest. No one wants to see their kid go to spend weeks in jail, have PTSD, and have to go through that about their entire life. I mean,
he's screwed. He is.
I mean, from that aspect is
emotionally, mentally, he's screwed. The few people that are backing him politically have found other people to hang their banner off, so they leave his ass out in the cold.
Well, he's doing okay by my understanding right now, but the problem is
he had something going on, and a bunch of people backers. I don't know the entire story, but he basically they canceled the event because he was there.
I know that there were issues for him going to college and stuff, but at the end of the day, I mean, he's going to kind of disappear. But see, that's the problem that I have with a lot of this. And here's the thing that really gets me. The FBI had film footage of this, and they didn't immediately release it. There were a lot of things that came in. The only way they found is they had to do a FOIA request, and this is again, this was one of the things that they could have had a big mistrial for us if he was found guilty. We're talking about it is, I don't know if you saw this part. the prosecutors did not send the full high definition video. I mean, that's the way
As much as I disagree with the situation of him being out there, he should not. He should not have gotten hosed as bad as he did.
well, and the idea was to use him as a political scapegoat with the assumption that he would not have the resources to fight back. I mean, that's the sad fact of it. And I mean, I've listened to a lot of the stuff that goes behind it, but yeah, I mean, I agree with you as a parent. Boy, what was you doing out there? That was just dumb.
That was incredibly irresponsible, incredibly dangerous. Yes, you could. Yeah, he did kill one person, two people.
Two people.
Two people.
The third guy.
He
The
could
third
have
guy
gotten
was running up on him, and this is what
right.
got me.
I'm not going to argue self-defense because I'm just not going to argue that. But he should have never been in that position whatsoever.
Well,
And if anybody deserves to go to jail, it should have been his parents for dropping his ass off for endangering a minor.
To me, the person that should be in jail is the mayor for preventing the police from coming in to stop the thing in the first place.
I'm not arguing that. I'm just going with can't.
Well, I mean, I felt the same way when when the Rodney King riots came in, and see people joke about the roof Koreans. Why were the Koreans on the roofs with guns? Because the police stopped at a certain street, which was usually upper middle class. Again, they don't care. The same thing happened in Ferguson. They don't care if it's a minority neighborhood. They don't care if it's a poor neighborhood. Those can burn to the ground and people can riot there. But as soon as you start going over their political donors, oh my God. I mean, Lori Lightfoot and her, talk about Chicago.
I was just thinking Chicago. I was just thinking, hey, I know we're going to do a short show. It is up to you. It is 11 o'clock. I'm enjoying conversation with you. I always do. We can pull the plug and get back to this at another night.
We can do another 15 minutes at a certain
okay.
But I mean, that I'm not saying everything's perfect. And
no, but I don't want everything to be perfect. I was talking to my mom, which is, weird. Not that's weird, just the way it presented. As I don't mind that life is hard. I just wish it wasn't always a kick in the fucking nuts.
Well, here's what I think about it is, and I'm not knocking a lot of it, is I wish what they would do is they would try to help people with certain skills. This is one of the things I like to listen to Thomas Sowell whenever they talk about public education. I'm not against public education if they actually focused on making sure that the kids would be functional adults. But what I've noticed is that it's become indoctrination. And that's it. Well, I mean, you and I both homeschool our kids. I'm looking at like my son is, I think that people should get home ec. They should know how to cook and clean and stuff.
Oh yeah. You heard my spiel on that half dozen times, I'm sure.
Well, from a parent standpoint, the fact that I could teach my son when he was 7 years old how to cook eggs, eggs and bacon, that saved me so much time. Now, when I was 7, I learned how to cook, but the fact that I've done that with my son, and that's one of the things when I hear people go, well, I don't know how to cook. Well, then you know what? You're failing as a parent. You should give your kids basic life skills, like how to do laundry, which I always laughed at, because when people are like, well, how did your white stay white? I'm like, because I only wash them with white clothes or really light clothes, and then I wash my colors with my colors. I mean, this is basic stuff.
White with white, a cup or whatever of bleach, throw it in a wash, throw it in a dryer, hang it up if you have to, if it's linen, whatever, and move on with your life. This is not rocket science. No, but I agree. I get where you're going with that.
Even little things like, and I need to do it myself, is put some planter boxes. If you live in an apartment or something, put out some planter boxes and raise like rosemary and mint and stuff that's easy to grow.
I got my mom's yard to grow things.
But I mean, but
you're not wrong. You're not wrong.
Things are, a lot of kids don't do it. They talk about now again, you're about 10 years younger than I am. As a kid, Oh, my mother was. We all joke about it. Go out and play for however long. Be back for like lunch and dinner. That was
Uh,
the.
yeah, I am 2 years, 10 years younger than you, but it was my grandparents that raised me. So, I mean, ideally, I'm not, age wise, yes, you're absolutely right. I'm younger than you, but we were kind of raised by the same generation.
Oh, yeah. Well, the other, um, um, highly protected with the domain. Uh, yeah. I'm just not allowed to. Well, that's different, but you know how to survive on your own. And it's not that the fact that people don't even know how to cook really basic things like eggs and bacon. I mean, come on.
I want to make an argument on the eggs because there are several restaurants out there that I know of that to get a job as even as a line cook, you have to fry an egg perfectly or they will not hire you.
Okay, you're saying perfectly. I'm just saying to make sure it's edible.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's fair. That,
well, I mean, there's a my friend got it. There's the gastronomic science that comes into cooking, where you're like, look, most people know how to cook an egg, but most people don't know how to cook an egg well. Those are two different skills, and how to do something well. That's why you go to a restaurant because I want to get food that I can't get at home, or I'm too lazy to get at home.
oh man, after being quarantined for a year, I want anybody else's food. I was so sick, and I still slightly am. I am sick of my own cooking.
Well, we were talking about, but you sometimes like, why is your steak green? Like, because I could put parsley and thyme and oregano on it. Um,
Just
but
no
like,
A1 sauce.
oh, God, no. Oh no, I don't ruin it with that. You know what I do like to do though is when you pour the juices out, and then I'll because I do stuff in the house, and but I'll throw tallow down so it gets that nice sear on the outside.
Oh
And
yeah.
yeah.
I have a pound of duck fat rendered down to duck fat.
Ooh, yeah. Oh, and that if that's room temperature, you just pour it. Yep.
Oh yeah.
Well, James, you can do that. I mean, I've done poached eggs. I have done well, and see if you do it in sous vide, it makes it really easy.
I don't have one, and I'm not exactly in a financial position to go because that's like a couple $100 investment.
It's about well, let's see. Yeah, you're right. If I let's see, the Ananova was about 150. Sometimes you can get for 100, and then to get
The bags, the tank, the bags. Because if it was just a heat stick, I can make whatever.
So I'm not sure if you've heard this, and I don't know how well it cooks because I don't know the temperature. But if you can get the good sous vide bag, which I mean, if you do the it sucks the air out.
Yeah,
That's all you need, and then it seals
that
it.
vacuum seal it.
Yeah, I think
I
that's
saw somebody do it on a YouTube channel using a vacuum sealed bag and a rice cooker.
I've seen someone do it in the dishwasher. Though I think the dishwasher gets probably a higher temperature than what I like my steaks at, but
Okay, I'm just okay.
I mean, but that's the real reason I like the sous vide is it sets it at I can't overcook my steak.
No, yeah, and I get that. I just
well, for me, a lot of times is I get a nice big, and it depends what you're cooking at. Like a couple of days ago, we got, and Bruce knows it, but the HEB, chicken, the fajita chicken.
oh yeah.
And it comes uncooked, but it's already pre-seasoned, and so and it comes in a vacuum seal bag.
Yeah.
Take the bag and I throw it in the sous vide for a couple hours at about 150. Then I take it out, and well, in this case, I undercooked. I put it at 129. I messed up, so then I just put it in the oven for about 20 minutes until it get the nice char on the outside, and I was like, okay. Then I just cooked it up, and I mixed it with some verde sauce, which was probably a little too spicy for you.
Yeah. It's not so much as spicy; it just has death in it.
Yeah. Well,
Eh, I can handle my heat just fine. It just can't come from uh,
Capsaicin.
capsaicin. Yeah, I mean,
So but I did that and put the verde sauce along with the chicken. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that's in there. Like my son makes pancakes, which are easy to make. Well,
you
I
were
said,
saying before the ginger pancakes, and I've been meaning to try to make that just out of
oh,
curiosity.
what did he? Well, he likes it with the blackstrap molasses, and like I tell, instead of the regular molasses, I said, taste the batter. As much as they always say, oh, there's salmonella in eggs. I have never gotten salmonella from eggs. Now, your mileage may vary, but I that's one of those things.
If I did not notice it
Well,
because that's not.
I think the problem is that when people talk about it, is what quantity of it. That's the problem. It's the dosage of how much salmonella is actually in the egg. Just the fact
Right.
just
I mean,
because
when
you
I
put
was boxing, I used to do the raw eggs in a cup. Uh,
uh,
I just did it, not thinking anything about it other than this is pure protein.
and eggs are fantastic, especially if you can get them from farmers. And apparently, they're going nuts for the cost of eggs right now. So,
Oh God, that was a fun conversation I found myself. You ever find yourself in the conversations that you just don't want to be in, but somehow you get trapped in them?
well, here's the worst part. There are times that I don't really care about the outcome, and yet I argue as if my life depended on it.
I'm bad. I'm that bad.
Well,
Um,
for us, it was something about this happened at work, and I was arguing, and I even told, why do I really care? But I picked a side, and I defended that side with like it was the death sentence if I got it wrong, and I went.
I just
I will say this much: when it comes to engineering, there's a lot of trial and experimental error that comes from it, and it's not as much in there. Um, yeah, but that's right. But how many people are eating that many eggs? I mean, raw eggs. I don't know, but
yes.
well,
Let's
just like I
see.
heard raw cookie dough. They talked about raw cookie dough. Don't eat it. And then I found out it's really not from the salmonella. It's because the flour is contaminated or something.
Wasn't that how Monks's got started? Bad flour. Last Monks's.
Who knows? And again, eat whatever you want, but I this is the other
Bad
part
flour.
is
Yeah.
yeah, well, if it's bad flour, that's those are the things that I want my government to do is okay, test certain things. Let me know what's there. But I know with my son, we get the turbado sugar, we get nutmeg, cinnamon, cloves, and of
That
course
does.
ginger.
I'm coming over to your house for breakfast.
And ginger. Oh, my son makes fantastic. And then he adds some vanilla extract in there as
Yeah.
well. And then he puts the blackstrap molasses. And I'm like, oh, yeah, this is
Let's
really.
see. There's 12 eggs in the carton. I would do 5 eggs a day. I went through some cartons.
Well, I don't know if you remember, but in the 1970s, they talked about how unhealthy eggs were.
Oh
And,
yeah,
and then they came back,
yeah.
oh, well, we
One
were
day they're
wrong.
absolutely horrible for you. The next day, just eat the yolk. Then like a couple weeks later or a couple months later, no, just eat the whites. I mean, come on, people, make up my
It was
mind.
it was like 10 years for that. So 10 years, I think it was in the 1970s, they started talking about how bad eggs were. And in the 1990s, they're like, no, eggs are fine. And they did the same thing with margarine, which makes me go, why would I ever trust what our government says? I think the best way to look at it is go look at professional athletes and bodybuilders and see what their regimen is for eating. And that's the big thing. Oh, yes. Uh,
Yes, I
uh,
have. I'm
okay,
fat.
so fat gamer, I will almost one up you on that. No, I still use butter, but I use bone marrow butter, um, and I'll put that on there. I do that with my steaks and with and I like having bacon with. So I'll have the bacon, ham, and cheese inside of it. So that gets really good. Oh, and it's pepper bacon. I like the pepper bacon.
I was
Yeah, yeah, it is. And you know what they're finding out is it's not the fat that's really bad for you. It's against a lot of the other stuff
all fighting should be against
and against the clock. Well, I
yeah.
hope so. Um,
I I don't know. It's not so much what I've eaten in the past that makes me shudder, is some of the shit that I did as a teenager that makes me and I lived through that makes it's like jumping off the roof onto the trampoline and into the pool. You know how many things could have gone wrong?
oh yeah. Well, I hate saying this. Is yep.
Yeah.
Floyd Mayweather. Um, don't get me wrong. I like Floyd Mayweather. And Conor McGregor, I have nothing against. I will say this much is, and
This
kind of
whiskey's not
probably
bad.
touched it, is if you look at a lot of the typical white fighter, and this is where I'm going to be racist. I used to pick the fighter that had the darker skin just because I didn't like on how bright they were in my screen. Uh, well, yeah, because
Yeah, that is incredibly true. It did fit. I was
well,
just looking at the mechanics of the fighters. I wasn't actually looking at.
well,
Yeah, that's fair.
well, they were boxing, and Mayweather said, and McGregor said, "Okay, now let's do MMA." I mean, yeah, it's going to be a completely different aspect,
Yeah.
but
Has that fight actually happened?
not that I'm aware of.
I don't think so.
Yeah, but of
But yeah, I
course,
already did that. Okay. I thought that was
yeah.
somebody else's. But fuck. We always end up talking about food, which I'm
Maybe
not
wait.
complaining.
You know what's great about food is most people don't fight over it as much. All they talk about is how much they love it. Um, all right. Well, you know what? Eat all you want, James. For me, right now my gout acted up, and that's because I decided to have bread. Um, it's funny. I can eat 10 pounds of beef in a week and have no ill effects. But if I start eating a lot of breads, then it will set it off for me. And so there's as much as they talk about red meat. By my understanding, it's a combination of red meat and too many carbohydrates. So
It's when it comes to red meat, I remember my grandma, and I still do it. It will like she's shaving off a steak for a roast or whatever, and there's a bit, fat in some meat, and I'm pretty sure you're not supposed to do it. Hold on, but she did, and I do it, and she'll just take the piece of raw meat.
oh, okay. Just put it double speed there, Bo.
Yeah, yeah, sex, drugs, and rock and roll, and food. Yeah, the pieces of raw meat that were beef. I won't do it chicken, and I won't do it pork. But it is just raw beef. I'll just eat and not think anything twice about it. I don't know, from FDA point of view, you're probably not supposed to be doing it. But
So
no,
there's a lot of thing in there. There, I the chicken is one that I'd be really wary of.
at
With
raw,
the
yeah, raw egg,
but
one thing, raw chicken.
well, I don't even like the texture, but you know what I do like is a good duck breast with a crispy skin, which is how I used to render the duck fat. Is I would cook the. I couldn't buy it this year,
Yeah,
but I could not find duck breast. Normally, when I buy it from my local butcher, he says, "Well,
yeah.
you have to buy a case." I'm like, "Okay, now admittedly the case is about $150, but
Costco has it. My
uh,
local Costco, I should say, has
your
it.
local, but we didn't have it down here. And normally I could get it for like $12 a pound, or 11 or $12 a pound, and I get a whole case of duck breast. Um,
Yeah, that's the way to do it.
yeah, well, I did that. I'm still waiting for my coworker to tell me he has a share of a cow. As soon as he,
Yeah, I've been looking into that. Just co-op, find somebody to co-op a cow with.
oh, I mean, come on. So normally a dressed cow is about 500 pounds, um, and that's what the meat that you can get off of it. But I want the bones. And what I do with the bones is I normally will
Broth.
well, yeah, beef broth. I love getting bone marrow and then mixing it up with butter. And there's something about it that just makes it taste better than both. It's like when you mix butter and you put on the steak. I'm like, oh man, that is so good. Um, but then the bones will go to the dogs. I give them
Right.
I give them my ex because she has like 6 dogs, and they go chewing a bunch of big femur bones that have been cut in half. So, and we used to have a border collie, and she would take down a femur bone in like a week. A big femur bone. No problem.
Yeah, I had my mom had a growing up. My mom had a chocolate lab that would feed femur bones too. And when we first got it, it looks like something from the Flintstones.
Yeah.
By the time Bosco got done with it, there wasn't much left.
Well, we,
Yeah,
we used to find something like that. Well, it's supposed to be really good for their teeth. It's supposed to do a lot of things, and of course it gives them. Yeah, that's one of the things that if you ever listen to any Norse mythology, they talk. There was a, oh, what was the one? It was something about the sheep, and they said don't break the bones of the sheep.
Thor.
Yeah,
Thor had his. Oh, how did it go? Thor had two goats that were the that drove his sled. I don't know, sled,
yeah,
whatever. And every once in a while, he'd come down to earth, and if he found a family, or mainly a family that he felt sorry for, he would slaughter one of his goats and say, "Please eat this, get your fill." And I think it was maybe a one time or a one time meal. It might be a couple time meal, whatever. But do not break the bones. Do not suck out the marrow.
yeah, yeah.
And a little boy was so hungry that he did. He found out, of course, Thor was greatly upset and
Well, yeah,
Cherry, yeah, thanks, Bo. Greatly upset, and he was going to do something to the family, but he decided not to. Go up to Thor. He went up to Odin. Odin says, "Well, shit like this happens. Just have to learn how to move past it." Eventually, the goat actually did come back to life. I don't know the entire story, but that's the
I think the goats would come back to life every day, but if you had broken the bones and sucked out the marrow,
marrow. It would not come back. Yeah,
no, it came back, but it came back with a lame leg, and that's where he noticed it. Is like, hey, that's why you don't do that. But yeah, it was. It's been years since I've read that. My son is actually. I bought him, which reminds me, I need to go buy it because it comes out next week. Speaking of which, Neil Gaiman's third illustrated, you know, um, graphic novel
yeah.
on his Norse mythology.
Oh wow, I'm a fan of his when it comes to Sandman.
Well, I love Sandman, but what he did is he wrote a book,
Yeah.
normal text, no nothing in there. Well, he decided to convert that book into graphic novels, and so about every year they come out with one book that does a certain section, so many sections on it, and I've been buying those for my son because I don't expect him to read as much as we just like. I know that Legion of Myth. Max always talks about, oh, I don't care about artwork. No offense. If I'm paying money for something, I better see some damn artwork. Uh, I mean,
I mean, you're not wrong. I get that.
maybe because I like pretty pictures. It also artwork to me also defines the feeling that I get from the game. Now, and I'll let's see if I have it around. I'm just gonna great. Okay, so just an example for this one. Not that it's the not, but so like the wicked ones, which I like. I like the system, but when you start looking at the monsters here, if I can find them, but just like this kind of artwork,
Yeah,
it kind of
that's
gets
cool.
me. It kind of gets me into the mood that this is going to be kind of a joke game, and you just take it. What you do is you play. It's basically Dungeon Keeper, but for role playing. Um, and you create your dungeon, you go out, but I mean just the artwork in there puts me up into the point that okay, this is not going to be the super dark. Now you can go there with this game, but I my character would be a um, uh, how do I want to put it? He's going to be a bad guy, but it's going to be a cartoonish bad guy, just because of it. Um, just like the gods and stuff in there. It's a cool little thing, but that's what I want. I don't want a gritty game, but if I pull out the Alien one or the Symbaroum one, it has a certain feel to it, the darkness and everything else. And
Yeah.
that's what I want from my game, and that's the only problem I'm having really with 5e. If I look at the artwork of the Player's Handbook, the Dungeon Master's Guide, that artwork went towards more the gritty aspect. But I've noticed that the newer artwork keeps getting more and more anime style.
Well, if you yeah, I don't know if you noticed, probably not. One of the pictures in the handbook, was it the handbook? It was one of the books. Was you had a guy fighting a monster, and it very much looked like Beauty and the Beast.
Okay, I've seen
And
it in there, but what I'm saying, but like just the cover, and the same thing with second edition is when you start looking at the second edition, your mind immediately goes over that this is going to be something dark and gritty and stuff like that. But the newer edition is becoming more and more. Oh, he's still around. He just doesn't work for them anymore. I think he's a freelance. When
there's
TSR,
a local game shop to where I live in Bartonville. I don't remember the name off the top of my head. But the owner of said shop paid him to design a dragon for him and its logo, and he got a bunch of coins minted, smit, or whatever the terminology is. And it has in Elmore We Trust with the dragon in them. I've been meaning to buy a couple because I think they're really cool, and I like supporting local game shops.
I there's and that's really cool. But those are things I love. Larry Elmore for his artwork. So I've seen him where he's also done the cartoonish stuff. I love Errol Otis for some of his stuff. I but I my favorites. Not that we've done this, but my favorites are of course, which is weird because I think some people have better technical skill, but Frank Frazetta has done
Oh
some.
God, yeah.
Frank Frazetta nails a mood better than just about anyone. I may not like all of his facial features on his characters, but man, he nails it. And then the other one I love Boris Vallejo. And then this is my favorite because this is what I grew up with as a kid with John Carter of Mars was Michael Whalen. Michael Whalen,
Okay.
if you look up his stuff, just the visual colors, I love everything he does. Just the technical aspect, he does the John Carter stuff. And to be fair, as much as Shadow's talking about John Carter, um, again, as I just start showing stuff, I kind of like stuff like that. I do.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. Um, Everybody in chat, the 4 people are here. It is almost my bedtime, and I'd like to actually get to bed at a reasonable time. And Omen is supposed to be off 25 minutes ago. I appreciate you guys coming and hanging out with us. Bo, you're awesome, dude. I can't wait to be in your game. I got the email that you sent, and that's going to take me a minute to read through because it truly is a Bible.
But he did that one, and I need to go over and I need to do my backstory. He said he'll give me 5 points for my backstory. I said, okay, that's cool.
I might have to sit down with you and have you help me explain with it.
Sure.
Because I'm lost, but it happens.
Well, I had the fat gamer explain stuff to me, so that no, I'm sorry, not the fat gamer. The that darn cat sit down and explain it.
Right. You take it easy, James L. We're going to have to do a chat here soon to get you on because my chats always seem to be a whole lot better when your Australian ass is on them.
It's always better with Scottish and Australians in there along with less Americans just because and
I only know one Scot.
Well, yeah, but that makes it better. You can't have too many Scots. If you do that, then it waters down the brand.
Right. Oh my God.
No. Kyle, you just need to go for your Irish so we can get like all around. No, it's
I believe you, Bo. I look forward to that. This coming week on Gatekeepers, they are doing something really cool. I think you guys should check it out. I can't remember what it is off the top of my head, and I'm trying to give them some points, and I can't remember it. Hold on. Guide. That's not it. Anyways. My friend Jade, who y'all should know, is on it. Okay. January 25th, they will be talking about new game system, recommending a new game system to your players to avoid the burnout, such as blah, 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 to get away from WotC and Pathfinder. They're going to be bringing different systems that are worth playing. Maybe you should check out Traveler, GURPS, Rifts, Conan 2D20 from
Modifius.
Modifius would be another one. I know there is a couple of Lord of the Rings variations out there. They could be played. There are a world of games that you and your friends should try. So that's what they're going to be talking about this coming Wednesday. Thursday, I think we are. Don't hold me to this, but I think we're talking about dragons again. I could be wrong.
Okay, I thought that you guys were. Has Shadow done his whole thing for DMing you guys yet?
No, not yet. He is. Baron will be running us through. I keep wanting to say Eberron, but it's not Eberron. I want somebody to run Eberron. That's why. No, it is Exalted.
Oh, actually, and he's doing what, first edition?
I think so.
I mean, as much. And here's what's funny: everyone talks about World of Darkness and Onyx Path and all that. They've always been woke, but they have not been as antagonistic towards the base, and that's what gets me. I don't care. Just don't be, don't start doing everything, but just so. This is when you talk about a beast of a book.
That is a beast of the book. Wow.
Okay, this is the collector's edition when they had it half off. Now wait a minute. This is, you're gonna love this. This is what happens if you go through. I just want you to look at the difference here, even though this is better quality. This other one is what happens if you get it through Drive-Thru RPG print on demand.
Oh, wow.
This one is lower quality, and it's actually, I think, thicker than the by a little bit, not too much. But yeah, I like the third edition a bit better. I think they've refined a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
It's still one of those that when it does the crafting system, I'm just like, I can't one that wants to craft anything in that game system. That's a whole other level.
Right, I gotcha. Then this coming Saturday, I don't think Bruce is not running his campaign.
I'm just saying.
Of course, there is Friday night chill with Max, and golly knows what he's going to be talking about, but I'm sure it'll be fun. And Sunday, this coming Sunday, we are doing Star Wars second episode, the Attack of the Clones. So come watch us. It is Jack's pick. But he did Dragons on his own show a few months ago, maybe. Unfortunately, with gatekeepers and table breakers and all the other people, and I'm not saying people shouldn't, we should all fall in line, but topics kind of get thrown around a few dozen times, and we're doing Dragons this week, I think. But do check out Shadow's Dragons. I'm sure he says something worth listening to. He is a very smart person.
Yeah, I mean, we all have different experiences, and then the other thing is we're all trying to capture something different, I think, for our games.
Right. I know.
Even Call of Cthulhu and Ye Olde Geek. I like playing Call of Cthulhu with them, but I don't really want to do a campaign. I like the one-shots, which I say they're one-shots. They're 3 sessions to go through one adventure is what it comes down to. But
well, Bo, we will look forward to seeing you this coming Sunday for Attack of the Clones. Let me know, and I can shoot you a link so you can be in the panel to give your – and Star Wars, and this Star Wars to me is a series on daddy issues. It always has been and always will be to me because it's all about a failed father figure.
Yeah, well, but it's very classic. But the problem is that those of us who grew up in the 70s that watched it, and then we got some of the 80s.
Yeah,
the problem that you have nowadays is. Well, and I think that it actually did a good job once you went to the Clone Wars, the television series. Which
the animated series was awesome. I have no complaints.
Oh, it was fantastic when it was on Cartoon Network. It's just one of those that nowadays our beloved producer of Goonies decided to just shoot it in the foot instead of saying, you know what, I want to bring this to a new audience and also bring the old audience with us. And now no one wants.
Oh, even George Lucas said this movie wasn't for the original generation of his movies. These movies were always meant for kids. So if you saw the first set 20 years ago and don't like the next set, I'm sorry, but these movies weren't meant for you. These were his words.
I mean, I went over when they came out. The first one, I could say that. The second one, I'll be honest, I really felt that the second one was him trying to show off ILM and not him putting the depth that he should have in the story. And the third
Yeah.
one, it was okay, but really the problem really comes down. People forget this. If you're going to do a trilogy, you got to make a great first movie that leads into it. Instead of I rewatched The Phantom Menace. I forgot what it was, like 10 years ago, and I went, "Oh my god, it's worse than I remember."
Well, this is the argument, and this will be the last statement, then we'll get off. I know a lot of people have issues with the Marvel movies because of their because of their agendas, and that's fine. I enjoy watching them because I like those type of movies, and I can ignore the bullshit. But that's just me. But here's my thing with Marvel movies, and this is why Marvel movies will always be better than DC movies. Marvel movies, even if they make a couple stinkers, they will keep pushing forwards. DC, oh no, that one bombed. We gotta restart, replan. So now we're on our 30th Superman and our 100th Batman and
well,
whatever. We know those are not real numbers, but
well, I mean, to be fair in this, you have to look at what came out. Christopher Nolan did a great job with Batman and really reinvigorated the series.
oh
Um,
yeah.
and if you look at it, is actually when we talk about Tim Burton did a great job with, I think, the Batman for the two that we saw.
Yeah.
Well, you have to realize that before Tim Burton made the movie,
Oh, fucking
Batman,
Adam West kills me.
Adam
Adam
West,
West.
it was Adam West, and he did the. I think he was able to bridge the group that wanted a more gritty Batman with the group that was also from the old one.
I like Phantom too. I like Phantom Menace. If it didn't have young Anakin in it, I think it would have been a great movie.
You know what? Not that we were talking about this, and I don't want to go too much because I like to go to bed at some point.
Yeah, I'm trying to wrap things up myself.
But I think if what they had done is they had met Obi-Wan Kenobi and he met a 20-year-old Darth Vader or Anakin, then they could have done the whole romance with Padme. They would have tied right directly into it remember when he's talking to Luke in the very first movie and says, well, what was your father like? Oh, he was a great fighter. Or when he was talking about Darth Vader, and I wasn't that would have made a lot more sense to me if they had done it as if he was 20 years old. And here's the other thing. Everyone wanted Darth Vader to be the most kick-ass. If they had made Darth Vader kind of Anakin, not a strong force user.
Yeah.
So he was embittered towards the other Jedi, that he wasn't as powerful. It would have allowed them to do a lot more from a character standpoint, that you have someone that's older, that's reckless, and has issues where he feels inferior and he resents the other Jedi, which would have made a lot more sense for him turning on the whole Jedi Order and hunting them down.
Oh God, yeah, I agree with that. I'm gonna have to talk to my friend Finn. He actually knows the proper order on how to watch the Star Wars movie, and I do know Phantom One is not in that list.
Rogue One wasn't too bad. Rogue One was okay.
Rogue One was, oh my, okay. We're gonna stop. We are so gonna stop because you want to go to bed. I want to make dinner, and this is the next 2 hours worth of conversation.
I know.
I love you guys in chat for hanging out with us. Listen to me and Omen just ramble on about really whatever.
What did we go from? We went from justice all the way to food to Rogue One.
Physics. Yeah, quantum physics.
Oh, yeah, quantum physics.
To 12 Angry Men, to How to Cook an Egg, to Star Wars, an opera on daddy issues, and don't
Yeah.
get me started on Lord of the Ring. I think I might have to start that episode next Sunday with my quote from Chasing Amy. If you haven't seen it,
Oh my God, you have to do it. Black Rage. Yes, that was
yo, yeah.
that is a great. Anyone that's seen Chasing Amy, that alone makes the movie worth watching. Just that whole thing.
Oh my God, yeah. I have to make sure I get the quote correctly, but yeah, I'm pretty sure I know it still. All right.
Wait a minute. That was back when Kevin Smith was actually funny and had not sold his soul.
You're wanting to get off the show, and we're going to topics I like to talk about.
Okay.
All right.
You know what?
Yeah. Here we go. This is the last one we'll go with.
Yeah. Oh, did you ever, speaking of which, did you ever see did you ever see the Robot Chicken versions?
Oh, God, yes. And the Family Guy, and yeah.
And then the final one was when Geek and Sundry was actually kind of fun to watch, was when they did the Space Janitors, which was kind of a joke of the whole thing, where instead of just having the Jedi, where they had the rebels and the Empire, and it has to deal with the janitors that have to clean up. Anyway.
All right. Well, this is where we are going to say goodnight, because, yeah, we're saying goodnight. And good Lord, we need to start these conversations earlier in the evening. I know. I had father things to do. All right, everybody here, you have a good night, and we'll see you when we see you.
All right. Good night, all.